It's been a hot minute and virtually an entire clay court season since I was last here, so it's time to rate the performances of the ATP and WTA top 5 and make some French Open predictions. Hey guys, welcome back to the tennis vlog. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't done so already and hit the notifications bell as well, because that is the only way you will know when I'm uploading at the moment, because I don't know myself. I'm going to take each of the current ATP top 5 and each of the current WTA top 5, look at each player individually. I'm essentially going to rate their clay court seasons based on their ability on clay, their form so far this year, the caliber of opposition they faced, and we're just gonna take a look at how these players are looking ahead of the French Open. That's the best way of putting it, I guess. I'm gonna have more to say about some players than others because I'll have watched them more and therefore will have more analysis. So let's crack on and get started with our ATP number 1, Mr. Novak Djokovic. He's played 3 events this clay court season. He has compiled a 10 wins to 2 losses record, and he's won a title, which was at the Masters 1000 event in Madrid. All the analysis and comments I'm making here are off the top of my head because I haven't really written anything down, and it's going to be difficult for me to remember individual matches, so bear with me. Djokovic had an iffy start to the clay court season with his showing in Monte Carlo. He was making some weird unforced errors against Kohlschreiber, and then in his eventual loss to Medvedev, Medvedev was almost beating Djokovic as his own game, which is not a good sign for Novak. I feel like there was a lot of doubt surrounding Djokovic coming into the clay court season, given that he'd lost second round and third round in Indian Wells and Miami, obviously 2 of the biggest events on tour. So maybe there was some undue concern over his early loss in Monte Carlo. From my personal observations of Djokovic this clay court season, he did start off wobbly, but I think he righted that ship incredibly well. Yes, he doesn't go into Roland Garros with wins over Nadal or Federer, but he has a good win over Thiem, which was in the semis in Madrid. Thiem had saved match point to beat Federer to get to that stage. He's known for being one of the best players on dirt at the moment. When he unleashes that backhand and finds the mark, it can be really devastating. So for Djokovic to hang in and win in the pressure moments, very positive. 2 big takeaways for me from Djokovic's clay court season so far. First one of these, he is an absolute machine in the pressure moments. If we're looking at the big 3 alone, I think both Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal have taken a bit of a hit when it comes to playing under pressure in recent times, tend to overthink a bit more and become a bit more tight. With Djokovic, when he's facing big pressure moments, whether it be because he's in a big match or because he's taking on a big name player, or because the player he's playing against has a massive percentage of the crowd behind them, those kind of moments really seem to bring the best out of Djokovic. He doesn't wilt, he doesn't tighten, he rises and he unleashes. Perfect example of this was in the quarterfinals in Rome, a match that probably hit Djokovic's chances of securing the title. Remember, Madrid and Rome are back-to-back. Honestly, Juan Martín del Potro, I believe, had that match on his racket. What Djokovic really struggles with is a big hitting player who absolutely goes all out, unleashes, nails the marks, and attacks on every single point. That's why I feel Nick Kyrgios has had good success against Djokovic, besides the fact he played his 2 matches against Djokovic, both of which he won when Djokovic was still in the midst of that lull and dip in form. Del Potro was attacking, he was moving forward, he was generating such power that Djokovic was struggling to hang with him, even in longer rallies. He was going cross-court with him, just having to absorb the pace and keep going and hope that Del Potro missed, and for a while, Del Potro wasn't missing. When Del Potro was up in that second set tiebreak, he did tighten and he was not the same player afterwards, but Djokovic saved one of the 2 match points he faced with an absolutely nerveless and inch-perfect drop shot, and that says so much about how Djokovic deals with the pressure situations. So that's the first thing to note about Djokovic. Even during this clay court season, he rises when it matters. It was important for him to have 2 good runs in Madrid and Rome. Monte Carlo it's a while ago now, probably wasn't so important for him. The other thing to notice about Djokovic, which I think is interesting heading into the French Open, is the way he was dealing with fatigue against Nadal in the final in Rome. Make no mistake, Nadal went out there, attacked, and had the match on his racket from the get-go, but Djokovic looked really weary as he got steamrolled in that 6-love first set, and that's interesting to me looking ahead to Roland Garros, which is best of 5 sets. If Djokovic has been pushed and played a lot of tennis prior to the final, he could really struggle there if he comes up against Nadal. While he's been unexpectedly pushed, I do think all in all, from his serves to his ground strokes, Djokovic got himself into a good place during the clay court season. I think there was a bit of an overreaction to his form in Monte Carlo. These ratings are completely off the top of my head, but looking at opponents he's faced, matches he's come through, the way he's got his serve and his ground strokes going throughout the clay court season, I'm going to give Djokovic an 8 out of 10 for his clay court season thus far. Moving on to our WTA number 1, Naomi Osaka, who has played 3 events this clay court season, but only picked up 1 loss. She's 7 wins to 1 loss, with 0 titles. She's withdrawn twice. I thought I had Naomi Osaka sussed, really. She is the full package in terms of being able to hit a powerful serve, powerful ground strokes, but mix it up as well, play from any area of the court. She has a strong mentality when it matters. She is what you're looking for in a top player, and she always rises when she faces the top players and when she's playing at the big events. So I thought that's what Naomi Osaka is. She's a big game player and she is going to win more slams, which I still think. So I think the thing to say about Osaka is, firstly, and it's a big thing to say for her at such a young age with everything she's achieved already, most of the time the match is going to be on her racket. That's how good she is. And that's why she's won some straightforward straight setters on clay this year, but also gone on to lose some matches where she's been erratic in key moments, because it's generally about her and where her mentality and her headspace is at. It's noticeable not just on clay, but also this year in general, that Osaka has struggled against players who don't have the top 10 status but are close to having the top 10 level, and she struggles with dealing with that mentally and also playing with a lead against these players. She can't seem to handle it when she's not down on the scoreboard, if she's serving for the match and the other player is still producing quality tennis and still pushing. She's feeling that pressure a little bit. When she started swinging in that match against Vekic, and Vekic is a player who's hitting powerful strokes, she's keeping it low, she was just out-hitting her opponent. She was landing a first serve and Vekic was struggling to deal with that. She was just swinging, going for winners, and just not caring about the scoreboard, and that shows exactly how damaging she can be on clay. It was clay where I first really took Osaka seriously as a big name for the future, when she pushed Simona Halep a few years back. So that's my take on Osaka on clay, given that she's hardly played, hasn't won a title, and has been a bit hit and miss. I can't really give her more than a 5 out of 10 for her showings to date. And so on to ATP number 2, Rafael Nadal, the king of clay, who took a while to get going on the dirt this season. He's played 4 events, compiled a 14-3 win-loss record, and won 1 title, which came just last week at the Italian Open in Rome. While I think everyone's worries about Nadal were premature, as they usually are, I do think he needed that win over Djokovic for his confidence going into the French Open. I think it would have crushed him to lose that match, as he looked in some danger of doing after Djokovic stole the second set. The moment Nadal had lost at a couple of clay court events, the age-old cries of he maybe needs to retire now began to resurface, as they do. And as I said at the time, when Nadal has struggled in recent years, it's generally come down to one of 2 things: rust and lack of confidence. One of these can lead to the other, and I think both of these 2 things affected Nadal early in his clay court season. Coming into Monte Carlo, he'd only played 2 events since the Australian Open, so he was a bit rusty. That wasn't really exposed because he wasn't really pushed in his opening 3 matches, but when Fognini applied the pressure, Nadal couldn't really respond, went down quickly there, and then that knocked into his confidence, and going into the clay court season further on, he was a bit tighter in key moments, key situations. What stands out to me is against Stefanos Tsitsipas, he got himself into winning positions in points and then made weird unforced errors. But the thing about Nadal is that he absolutely knows his body and his game tons better than anyone else, and he is the prime example, I feel, on the tour for focus and for plugging away until your game comes to fruition. He's done this journey before. He knew through his performances, through opportunities that he'd had and missed, that he was on his way to a better standard of playing, to a better place. And in the end, the results showed that. In that final in Rome with Djokovic, I thought he was hitting his forehand better than I've seen him hit it the entire clay court season. It was potent, it was effective, but essentially as well, he was trying to play an attacking brand of tennis. Nadal can turn those points around from the back foot, but he was really going for it and stepping up and trying to end the point earlier. Mentally, he looked great. Djokovic really did sneak out that second set. Nadal had 3 straight break points at one point to serve for a straight sets victory, and so to come through and win that deciding set so convincingly is brilliant for Nadal going into the French Open. He looks in great form now. It took him a while to get to a position where he looks this convincing, and obviously he used to sweep the board when it came to clay court tournaments. So as far as ratings go, and this is completely random and obviously thought of on the spot, I would give him about a 6 out of 10 for his performances, but you look at his 3 losses to Fognini, Tsitsipas and Thiem, and 2 of those players have been producing brilliant tennis, not just on clay but across all surfaces in recent years. And then Fognini at one point had Nadal's number and can be terrific on the surface, so giving Nadal a 7 out of 10 for his efforts so far. This is taking way too long, so we're going to speed it up. Karolina Pliskova, the WTA number 2, has played 3 singles events this clay court season, has come away with 1 title at the Italian Open, and has compiled a 6 wins to 2 losses record. She was also supposed to compete at her home event in Prague, but withdrew from that tournament. Pliskova is a former French Open semi-finalist. She had Simona Halep on the ropes on that occasion in 2017, was on the brink of victory, and Halep obviously won the French Open last year. Despite some great performances on the dirt over the past couple of years, I still think of Pliskova as something as a clay court dark horse, and honestly I think she should just be up there as a leading contender. What's really intriguing to me about Pliskova doing well is the fact that she's a big hitter, a big server, hits flat ground strokes that are pretty slick on the hard courts, on the grass courts, and what's become apparent to me on clay courts this year is that a traditional hard court game is becoming more effective on dirt. The players that are attacking and looking to take advantage and looking to keep the points short are generally the players across the board doing well on a more regular basis. Often clay court has been about endurance, about hanging in the long rallies, about waiting for your opponent to make the error, but actually this year we've seen a lot of players finding success by moving into the court, by coming to the net, by hitting big and by finding their marks. And that's what Pliskova did really effectively against Konta. She was finding her marks with the serve, she was coming to the net and finishing things off there. Her brand of tennis is becoming effective on this surface, and I certainly think it's helping her to have that little bit extra time on the ball in order to line up and execute her shot. She's not the greatest mover, Pliskova, and while she can hit a lethal shot when in the right position, she has to get into that position. Clay courts give her the extra time and her strategy gets her through, and Pliskova definitely one to watch in Roland Garros. So she's not played much, Pliskova, but she has won a title, lost to a quality opponent in Azarenka, so I'll give her a 6 out of 10 on her clay court season. Nearly halfway through, and this one's going to be a quick one. ATP number 3, Roger Federer, back on dirt for the first time since 2016. He played 2 events, which is more than he was expected to play ahead of the French Open. He'd originally just signed up to Madrid, but played Rome as well, compiled a 4 wins to 1 loss record as he pulled out in Rome, and obviously didn't win a title. I have to say, what I saw of Federer on clay was brilliant, and I wasn't even surprised. I don't think people should have been surprised. He's a former French Open champion, and yes, it happened a decade ago, but he's always been able on the surface. The achievements of the like of Nadal and Djokovic have just overshadowed this. While his runs in Indian Wells and Miami were statements in and of themselves, I just feel like with his major drought at the moment, Federer needs a bit of freeing up of the mentality and coming back onto dirt, of surface where he's not played in years and where he's underrated to an extent anyway. This is just a great opportunity for him to play without pressure and really go for it, and that is what we saw him doing. Even in the one match he lost against Dominic Thiem, who was playing some brilliant power tennis from all areas of the court, Federer had match points, and he was inches away from taking one of them. He went for a big return, missed it, lost the match, but he's won 2 matches against Gael Monfils and Borna Coric, saving match point. So he's played 5 good matches on dirt, 3 of them against really quality players, and I think it's highlighted some things in Federer's game that will be interesting to look at in Roland Garros. Obviously his first serve, his backhand and forehand when they're finding the marks are lethal across all surfaces, but I've been paying more attention on the dirt to his backhand slice. For a lot of players, the slice can be something they throw in defensively or when they don't want to go for it in a rally just yet. It's not necessarily a very effective shot, but with Federer, when he's playing that backhand slice, which can be a lot, he's getting it deep, he's really forcing his opponent back and not letting them hit the ball the way they want to. It's easier said than done to rip a winner off that shot, and Federer works the point into his favour and uses it effectively on the slower surface of clay where he doesn't necessarily need to go for the winner straight away. That said, he's played some great attacking tennis as well. I think best of 5 sets will probably be a different challenge for Federer, but as far as his performance ahead of the event has gone, I wouldn't put him up there as a leading contender. I think Nadal and Djokovic take those spots, but for sure he's shown that he has the talent and the potential to win it. If the draw opens up, you never know. Bit hard to rate Federer's clay court season given that he played so little, but based on other people's expectations for him and the way he kept every single match close or dominated it, I will give him a 7 out of 10. WTA number 3, Simona Halep has become known for her performances on dirt over the past couple of seasons. This year, it's not been fantastic. She's played only 2 events, compiled a 5-2 win-loss record, and picked up 0 titles. However, she did reach the final in Madrid, so she has matches under her belt. So Madrid was her first tournament. She picked up some great wins, actually, over Konta, who was picking up steam, Ashley Barty, who won Miami, and has a game with weapons that can do damage on all surfaces. Belinda Bencic was her victim in the semi-finals. She's been playing some stunning stuff at times in 2019, and then she went down in the final to Kiki Bertens, one of the best dirt court players on the WTA. A little worrying for Halep was her first round loss in Rome to Marketa Vondrousova, 2-6, 7-5, 6-3 to the unseeded Czech. Commenting on that loss first, it's a match that I watched most of. I found that one interesting because Halep was up against a big hitting Czech lefty with a good serve who likes to move up to the net. Very similar to Karolina Pliskova, who she's also struggled against on dirt. There's a lot of big hitters around at the moment, and that indicates that Halep might be in some uncomfortable positions at the French Open. In Madrid, hadn't dropped a set until that semi-final with Bencic. I watched both her match against Bencic and her match against Bertens. I feel like in both matches, Halep really showed why she's good on clay. On the back foot, she ran faster than a lot of players could manage. She kept some points going and got balls back with interest that other players wouldn't have been able to get to. So she can play really vintage, traditional clay court tennis. She's a great athlete. She still feels comfortable on the surface, no doubt, and she's definitely a leading threat for the French Open. But the big thing I would say about Halep, again, is her serve. I think that was pretty much the deciding factor in her match with Kiki Bertens, who just served bigger and better at the crucial moments. At times, watching Bertens, it was like watching a mirror image of Halep. They do play a similar game on the clay, they strike the ball in a similar way, but when Halep is having to offer up second serves, it really gives her opponent an opening. They can push her onto the back foot. And honestly, I'm not sure that Halep is aggressive enough early enough in some of the points. Maybe she trusts her ability on the back foot too much, but going into the French Open, she should be looking to seize advantage and finish off a bit earlier, but most importantly to land those first serves and to land them well. With only 2 tournaments to assess, it's a bit hard to rate Halep's clay court season. This is a common theme in this video. I'll give her a 6 out of 10. Now we're reaching the back end of the top 5. The analysis will be getting a bit shorter. Dominic Thiem, Prince of Clay, who has pretty much fully seized that title back after Alexander Zverev's pretty disastrous clay court campaign so far. More on that later. He's played 4 events, compiled 9 wins to 3 losses, and won 1 title, which was at the Barcelona Open where he beat Rafael Nadal. Thiem has looked back to his best throughout most of this clay court season, which is great for him because he had started to look really iffy on the faster surfaces a few months back. Indian Wells should have indicated that he was going to do well on dirt because that was a slow court, high bouncing balls, great atmosphere to prepare for the clay. I didn't take too much away from Thiem's loss to Lajovic because I've been watching Lajovic a fair bit recently and he's definitely an underrated player. He has a lot of tools that can do damage, and he's playing pretty consistent tennis, or was at that point in time. Rome was a disappointment, lost in the first round 4-6, 6-4, 7-5 to Fernando Verdasco, but Verdasco, ridiculous firepower and brilliant talent on his day, so not necessarily a bad loss there, not one he would have wanted to pick up, but who knows what the scoreline would have been over 5 sets, which is what's going to happen at the French Open. The power and depth from Thiem when he's been firing has been breathtaking to behold. He does get that depth and pinpoints those corners and isn't afraid to move forward. He makes split-second decisions really well, and I think the way he's attacked has been a good example for many players. Especially encouraging for him is the way he responded to some pressure situations. Prime example, that tie-break with Federer, highest quality, he just ripped some of those balls, held his nerve incredibly well. He comes into the French Open having beaten Nadal and Federer on clay already in 2019. He made the French Open final last year. Everything we've seen so far on dirt this year shows that he has the potential to get there again. 2 of his 3 losses came to really high quality opposition, so I'm going to give Thiem 8 out of 10 for his clay court season based on the fact that he's beaten Nadal and Federer and pushed Djokovic close. WTA number 4, Kiki Bertens, a new presence in the top 5. She was a clay court specialist but has started to transfer her form to hard courts as well. Now she's back on dirt and loving it. She's gone 13 wins to 3 losses across 4 events on clay this season and won 1 title, which was at the prestigious Premier event in Madrid. Unimpressive start in Charleston, really, losing second round, but to Maria Sakkari, who went on to win the title in Rabat. Better results in Stuttgart with wins over a zoning Annalena Friedson, Belinda Bencic and Angelique Kerber. Lost in 3 sets to Petra Kvitova, who's just outside of the top 5. As we've said, won Madrid with wins over Yelena Ostapenko, Petra Kvitova, Sloane Stephens and Simona Halep, but fell to Johanna Konta in 3 sets in the semi-finals of Rome. Bertens is just a vintage clay court player. She's very consistent in the baseline rallies. She can use all areas of the court. Particularly notable about Bertens is her ability to use the drop shot incredibly well and to expose her opponent's positioning, make them move, make them run. She has good feel, good hands at the net. She kept it close against Kvitova in Stuttgart, who has been in some sublime form this season. Beat her in Madrid, got a good win over Halep, obviously in the Madrid final, outperformed her in the pressure moments. Rome, where she was the 6th seed, maybe a bit of a concerning loss to Konta. Konta, I feel, with her top spinning ground strokes and her variation, has a game that's actually a good fit to dirt, and she's just beginning to discover that on the main WTA circuit. So in a way, not a bad loss for Bertens, but definitely a match that she had chances to win. And if she was feeling fatigue a bit there, which she seemed to in the latter stages, that could be of concern when it comes to winning 7 matches in a row. She's been to the French Open semis before. She pushed Serena Williams there. Bar that Charleston loss, it's actually been a really good run for Bertens, and she's got her ranking up. I would give her a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. Alexander Zverev, the ATP number 5, was one of the best players by a long way on clay courts last year. Hasn't replicated that form this year. He is in the final of the Geneva Open, his 6th clay court tournament this season, as he desperately looks to find form ahead of Roland Garros. For a player of Zverev's capabilities across all surfaces and his results in particular on clay last year, where he reached the final of both Madrid and Rome, it's been a disappointing clay court campaign. Zverev's a tall guy, big serve, big shots, the ability to come forward and impose himself on the court. What I've noticed a lot when watching him is that he's being pushed onto the back foot an awful lot, or he's letting himself go onto the back foot. And there've been moments of brilliance when he's hit a wonderful pass or he's turned the point around, but these are not coming consistently enough for him to allow himself to be in that position. I think he'll definitely come through this patch of iffy form and win big titles again, and I think when he comes through this patch of rough form, he'll probably be a stronger player because of it, because the time he's had to spend on the back foot has made him have to improvise there. But a player of his dictating abilities shouldn't be allowing this to happen so much. He's clearly playing in Geneva for his confidence and to get some matches under his belt ahead of a big major. As far as his own expectations go, as far as other people's expectations for him go, and as far as the tennis he's produced this clay court season goes, I am not able to give him a high rating. So I'd be saying based on what I know he's capable of. 3 out of 10 for his clay court campaign thus far. And finally, WTA number 5, Angelique Kerber, and this is going to be super short because if I've watched anything of Kerber this clay court season, it's been nothing more than a few points. She's played just 2 events, compiled a 2 wins to 1 loss record, and obviously won 0 titles. Her first dirt tournament came under the roof of Stuttgart at home in Germany, beat Andrea Petkovic in straight sets, but lost to Kiki Bertens, clay court genius, 6-3, 6-4, and in Madrid beat Lesia Sorenko 6-3, 6-2 before pulling out of the tournament. She was the number 4 seed there. So I can't really comment on what Kerber's done this clay court season because she's barely been present and may not be in the best physical state heading into the French Open. All I can say is she is one of the WTA's best counterpunchers. Wherever she's playing, she can rip some brilliant angles from way behind the baseline. I'm not even gonna rate her clay court season because there's been next to nothing of it. So there you go, 10 players with their clay court seasons so far reviewed and rated, and now against my better judgment I'm going to make some predictions for French Open champions. Nadal for the men and Osaka, Serena or Kvitova for the women for the time being. In the comments section, let me know your French Open champion predictions and also your ratings for the ATP top 5 and the WTA top 5. Let me know whether you agree or disagree with mine, which I made up on the spot, so don't slaughter me for them, please. Let me know any observations you had on the likes of Kerber, who I saw next to nothing of on dirt, or any of the other players I've mentioned and discussed. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.